communication shapes nearly every part of daily life. It influences how people see you, how they respond to you, and how they remember you after a conversation ends. A simple exchange can open a door, build trust, or clear a misunderstanding. At the same time, unclear or careless communication can create distance, even between people who care about each other. Most people are never formally taught how to communicate well. They learn through trial and error, often carrying habits that make conversations harder than they need to be. Speaking too fast, listening without full attention, reacting emotionally, or using unclear words can quietly affect relationships, work, and confidence over time. This audiobook focuses on practical ways to change that. It explores how to listen with real attention, how to speak with clarity, how to manage emotions during conversations, and how to build trust through consistent behavior. It also shows how small daily habits can improve the way you express yourself and understand others. You will hear simple, direct ideas that can be applied in everyday life, whether in family conversations, friendships, or professional situations. Each part is designed to help you communicate in a way that feels calm, clear, and meaningful. By the end, communication will no longer feel confusing or stressful. It will feel more natural, more steady, and more effective in real situations. Chapter 1. Listen deeply to understand people before speaking. Communication is one of the few abilities that influences every part of life. It affects the quality of friendships, the strength of families, the success of careers, and the peace we experience within ourselves. Many people spend years trying to become better speakers. They practice persuasive language, improve their vocabulary, and learn how to present ideas with confidence. These skills are valuable, but they rest on a foundation that is often ignored. Before becoming someone who speaks well, become someone who listens well. Every meaningful conversation begins long before the first response. It begins with the decision to give another human being complete attention. Many people believe they are listening when they are actually waiting. They wait for the other person to pause so they can explain their opinion. They wait for an opportunity to defend themselves. They wait for the chance to prove they are right. Their mind remains busy while the other person is talking. They hear the sounds but never receive the meaning. They remember only enough information to prepare a reply. As a result, conversations become competitions instead of connections. Think about how often this happens in daily life. A friend shares a difficult experience, and before finishing the story, another person interrupts with advice. A family member expresses frustration, but someone quickly changes the subject to their own problems. A coworker explains a concern during a meeting, yet others focus only on defending their own ideas. Everyone speaks, but very few people truly understand one another. Deep listening is different. It requires patience, it requires humility. Most of all, it requires the discipline to place understanding above being understood. This discipline does not come naturally. The human mind enjoys expressing itself. It enjoys being noticed and appreciated. It enjoys proving its intelligence. Listening asks the mind to step back. It asks the ego to become quiet for a while. That is not weakness, it is strength. A Stoic approach reminds us that we cannot control another person's thoughts, emotions, or choices. We can only control our own attention and response. Listening deeply is one of the clearest examples of this principle. While another person speaks, your responsibility is not to shape their words. Your responsibility is to understand them as honestly as possible. Understanding does not mean agreement. This distinction is important. You can fully understand someone's opinion without accepting it. You can understand why someone feels hurt without believing they are completely right. You can understand another person's fears without allowing those fears to become your own. Listening is not surrender. It is observation. It is gathering information before making a judgment. Imagine speaking with someone who immediately understands what you mean without interrupting or correcting you. You probably feel respected. You probably feel calmer. You become more willing to explain yourself honestly because you know your words are being received. That feeling is a gift. Every person deserves to experience it, and every person has the ability to offer it. People rarely remember every sentence you say. They remember how they felt while speaking with you. If they felt dismissed, they remember disappointment. If they felt judged, they remember discomfort. If they felt respected, they remember trust. Listening creates that trust long before impressive words ever can. Trust develops quietly. It grows through consistent moments that often seem ordinary. Someone shares a concern, and you remain focused instead of checking your phone. Someone tells a long story, and you avoid rushing them. Someone struggles to explain their feelings, and you patiently allow silence instead of forcing the conversation forward. These small actions communicate something powerful. They say, your thoughts matter, your experience matters, you matter. Modern life constantly competes for our attention. Notifications interrupt conversations. Busy schedules encourage rushed interactions. Many people answer questions while reading emails or looking at a screen. Their body remains present, but their attention is somewhere else. This divided attention weakens every relationship it touches. Attention is one of the greatest forms of respect you can give another person. It costs nothing, yet many people receive very little of it. When you decide to focus completely on someone for even 10 minutes, you offer something increasingly rare. You tell them that this moment deserves your full presence. Presence cannot be faked. People notice when your eyes wander. They notice when your answers do not match what they just said. They notice when your facial expression remains unchanged, regardless of what they share. Human beings are remarkably sensitive to attention. Even young children recognize when someone is pretending to listen. Improving this ability begins with small habits. Before entering a conversation, clear your mind as much as possible. Put away distractions whenever you can. Make eye contact naturally without staring. Allow your body to face the speaker instead of turning away. These simple actions prepare both your mind and theirs for genuine communication. While listening, notice the temptation to interrupt. It often appears suddenly. Perhaps you believe you already know the ending. Perhaps you think your advice will save time. Perhaps a similar experience comes to mind and you feel eager to share it. Instead of speaking immediately, pause. Ask yourself whether your response serves the other person or merely satisfies your desire to contribute. This single pause changes conversations dramatically. It creates space. It gives the speaker confidence that their complete thought will be heard. It also allows you to understand details that might otherwise be missed. Many misunderstandings happen because people respond to half a sentence instead of the whole message. They assume they know what another person means before hearing the complete explanation. Assumptions are fast, but understanding is careful. Careful listening often reveals emotions hidden beneath words. A person may complain about work, but the deeper issue is fear about providing for their family. Someone may appear angry, but underneath that anger is disappointment or loneliness. Another person may criticize others because they secretly doubt themselves. If you respond only to the surface words, you miss the real conversation taking place. This is why listening involves both the ears and the heart. Pay attention not only to what people say, but also to how they say it. Notice changes in their voice. Notice long pauses. Notice hesitation. Notice excitement. These details often reveal more than the actual sentences. There is also value in silence. Many people become uncomfortable whenever a conversation pauses. They rush to fill every quiet moment with more words. Yet silence often gives another person permission to continue speaking. They remember something important. They gather their thoughts. They express emotions they almost kept hidden. Silence communicates patience. It tells another person that there is no pressure to perform. Some of the most meaningful conversations contain moments where neither person speaks. Those moments are not empty. They are moments of reflection and trust. Listening deeply also requires freedom from immediate judgment. The mind naturally labels everything as right or wrong, intelligent or foolish, acceptable or unacceptable. While these judgments may eventually become necessary, making them too early blocks understanding, consider someone whose opinion differs greatly from yours. If you immediately decide they are wrong, your curiosity disappears. Every sentence they speak becomes something to defeat instead of something to examine. Yet curiosity asks a different question. It asks, what experiences led this person to think this way? That question opens the door to understanding. Curiosity is one of the strongest habits a communicator can develop. Curious people continue learning throughout life because they recognize that every individual knows something they do not. Every conversation becomes an opportunity instead of a contest. Humility supports this curiosity. Humility does not mean believing you are less valuable than others. It means recognizing that your knowledge is incomplete. No matter how educated, experienced, or successful you become, there will always be perspectives you have never considered. Listening protects you from the illusion that you already know everything worth knowing. History is filled with intelligent people who failed because they stopped listening. Their confidence slowly became arrogance. They rejected advice, ignored warnings, and dismissed different viewpoints. Their knowledge remained frozen while the world continued changing. In contrast, the wisest individuals often ask the most questions. They listen more than they speak, because they understand that growth begins with learning, and learning begins with attention. Practice this in ordinary situations. Speak with the cashier at a grocery store instead of rushing through the transaction. Listen carefully when an elderly family member tells stories you have heard before. Pay attention when a child describes something exciting in their day. These conversations may seem small, but they strengthen the same listening muscles needed for life's most important moments. People often search for dramatic opportunities to improve themselves while overlooking simple daily practice. Great communication grows through ordinary conversations repeated with extraordinary attention. Listening also transforms conflict. During disagreements, people usually prepare defenses instead of seeking understanding. Voices become louder. Emotions become stronger. Each person believes speaking more forcefully will solve the problem. Yet most conflicts continue because neither side feels heard. When someone becomes emotional, resist the urge to match their emotional intensity. Instead, remain steady. Listen until they finish. Reflect back what you understand before presenting your own perspective. Often a simple statement such as, "I understand that you felt ignored," reduces tension immediately. Even if they disagree with your conclusion later, they recognize that you listened first. This does not solve every disagreement, but it creates an atmosphere where solutions become possible. Respect lowers defenses. Patience reduces resistance. Understanding opens doors that arguments cannot. Listening deeply is not simply a communication technique. It is a way of treating people with dignity. It reminds us that every person carries experiences, hopes, disappointments, fears and dreams that are invisible at first glance. When you listen with genuine attention, you acknowledge the humanity behind the words. That simple act has the power to strengthen relationships, reduce unnecessary conflict, and create conversations that leave both people wiser than when they began. Chapter 2. Practice clear speech to express ideas with confidence. Many people believe confidence begins inside the mind, but in everyday life, confidence becomes visible through speech. Thoughts may be intelligent, creative, and valuable, yet they remain hidden until they are expressed clearly. The ability to speak with clarity is not a gift reserved for a fortunate few. It is a skill built through intention, patience, and repeated practice. Every person who communicates with confidence once struggled to find the right words, doubted their own voice, or worried about saying the wrong thing. The difference is that they continued improving instead of allowing fear to become permanent. Clear speech is not about sounding impressive. It is not about using difficult words or speaking louder than everyone else. It is about making your ideas easy for others to understand. Communication succeeds when another person receives your message as you intended, not when they admire your vocabulary. Simplicity often carries more power than complexity, because simple words reach more people and leave less room for misunderstanding. Many conversations become confusing because people speak before organizing their thoughts. Their ideas move in different directions. One sentence begins with one point and ends somewhere completely different. The listener works hard to connect pieces that were never arranged properly. This creates frustration for both people. The speaker feels misunderstood, and the listener feels overwhelmed. Before speaking, give yourself a brief moment to decide what you truly want to communicate. Ask yourself one simple question: what is the main idea I want this person to remember? This small habit brings focus to your words. Instead of wandering through several unrelated thoughts, your message moves with purpose. A disciplined mind produces disciplined speech. The Stoic philosophers believed that wisdom begins with self-control. That principle applies directly to communication. A person who controls their thoughts is less likely to speak carelessly. Their words reflect intention instead of impulse. They do not fill silence with unnecessary comments simply because they feel uncomfortable. They speak because they have something useful to contribute. Many people underestimate the value of slowing down. Fast speech is often mistaken for intelligence, but speed does not guarantee clarity. In fact, rushing through sentences usually creates confusion. Important ideas deserve enough time to be understood. Speaking at a calm pace allows your mind to stay organized while giving your listener an opportunity to follow your message without effort. Pausing is equally important. A thoughtful pause is not a sign that you are uncertain. It is evidence that you care about choosing your words wisely. People often fear silence because they believe it makes them appear weak or unprepared. In reality, brief pauses communicate confidence. They show that you are comfortable enough to think before responding, rather than reacting immediately. Confidence grows when you remove the pressure to sound perfect. Many people remain quiet because they fear making mistakes. They replay conversations in their minds long after they end, criticizing every sentence they spoke. This habit creates unnecessary anxiety. Communication is not a performance. It is an exchange between human beings, and human beings are imperfect. Allow yourself to speak naturally. If you lose your train of thought, pause and continue. If you choose the wrong word, correct yourself without embarrassment. Most listeners pay far less attention to small mistakes than you imagine. They focus on your overall message, not on every detail of your delivery. The strongest communicators do not pretend to know everything. They speak honestly about what they know and remain comfortable admitting what they do not know. There is quiet confidence in saying, "I need more information before I answer," or "I'm not certain, but this is how I understand it." These statements build credibility because they demonstrate honesty instead of false certainty. Your voice also influences how people receive your message. Speaking too softly may cause uncertainty, while shouting often creates resistance. Aim for a calm, steady tone that reflects respect for yourself and for others. A balanced voice encourages people to listen because it feels trustworthy. Emotional stability often begins with vocal stability. Breathing plays a larger role than many people realize. Anxiety causes breathing to become shallow and rapid. This affects both the voice and the mind. Before entering an important conversation, take several slow, steady breaths. This simple action helps your body relax and allows your thoughts to become more organized. A calm body supports a calm voice. Many people struggle to express themselves because they constantly compare their speaking ability to others. They admire someone who speaks effortlessly and conclude that they can never reach the same level. Comparison steals attention from the only progress that truly matters, your own. Communication improves through personal growth, not competition. Instead of measuring yourself against another speaker, compare yourself with the person you were 6 months ago. Are your thoughts more organized? Are you more willing to participate in conversations? Do you recover from mistakes more quickly? These are meaningful signs of progress. Real improvement is often gradual, but it becomes remarkable over time. Reading regularly can strengthen clear speech in unexpected ways. Every book introduces new sentence structures, fresh ideas, and better ways of expressing thoughts. Reading expands your understanding of language without forcing you to memorize complicated vocabulary. It teaches rhythm, precision, and balance. As your understanding grows, expressing yourself becomes more natural. Writing is another valuable exercise. Before speaking clearly, learn to think clearly, and writing reveals the quality of your thinking. Keep a journal. Write about your experiences, opinions, and goals. Describe events from your day in simple language. Explain difficult ideas as though you were speaking to someone with no prior knowledge. This practice trains your mind to organize information logically. Questions also improve communication. When someone appears confused by your explanation, do not assume they were not paying attention. Ask whether you explained your idea clearly. Invite clarification instead of becoming defensive. Effective communicators care more about being understood than about protecting their pride. Another useful habit is replacing vague language with specific language. Instead of saying, "Things didn't work out," explain what actually happened. Instead of saying, "I'm busy," describe what requires your attention. Specific words paint a clearer picture, reducing misunderstanding while increasing trust. Stories can also strengthen communication when used thoughtfully. People naturally remember experiences better than abstract ideas. A short personal example often explains a lesson more effectively than several minutes of general advice. The purpose of sharing a story is not to impress people with your experiences. It is to make an idea easier to understand and apply. At the same time, learn when a story is unnecessary. Some people answer every question with a lengthy explanation that drifts away from the original topic. Respect the listener's time. Give enough detail to communicate your message without burying it beneath unrelated information. Speaking confidently also requires emotional discipline. Strong emotions can cloud judgment and weaken clarity. Anger encourages harsh words. Fear encourages hesitant words. Excitement sometimes encourages careless words. Before expressing an important opinion, notice your emotional state. If emotions are overwhelming, allow yourself time to regain balance. A calm mind produces thoughtful communication. This does not mean suppressing emotions. Emotions carry valuable information, but they should guide awareness rather than control speech. There is a significant difference between expressing feelings honestly and allowing feelings to dictate every sentence. Practice explaining everyday ideas with simplicity. Describe how to prepare a favorite meal. Explain the rules of a familiar game. Teach someone a skill you already know well. These ordinary exercises strengthen your ability to communicate clearly because they require logical thinking and careful word choice. Conversations become easier when you genuinely care about helping another person understand. Shift your attention away from your own performance and toward the needs of the listener. Ask yourself whether your explanation is helpful, whether your examples are relevant, and whether your pace allows the other person to follow comfortably. This change in focus reduces self-consciousness while improving effectiveness. Accept that not every conversation will go perfectly. Sometimes you will leave out important details. Sometimes another person will misunderstand you despite your best effort. These experiences are not failures. They are opportunities to refine your communication. Every meaningful skill develops through correction. Patience is essential throughout this process. Lasting confidence does not appear overnight. It grows from hundreds of ordinary conversations where you choose courage instead of avoidance. Every time you express an opinion respectfully, ask a thoughtful question, explain an idea with greater clarity, or speak honestly despite uncertainty, you strengthen your ability to communicate. There will always be situations that test your confidence. A job interview, a difficult conversation with a loved one, a presentation before colleagues, or a discussion with someone who disagrees with you can create nervousness. Do not interpret that nervousness as weakness. It simply reminds you that the moment matters. Confidence is not the absence of discomfort. Confidence is the willingness to speak with honesty and composure, even when discomfort is present. As your speech becomes clearer, something deeper begins to change. You stop hiding your thoughts because you trust your ability to express them. Relationships become stronger because misunderstandings decrease. Opportunities appear because people understand the value of your ideas. More importantly, you develop greater respect for yourself. You recognize that your voice has purpose, your experiences have meaning, and your words can encourage, guide, solve problems, and bring people closer together. Clear speech is not merely a communication skill. It is a daily practice of disciplined thinking, honest expression, and quiet confidence that allows your character to be heard as clearly as your voice. Chapter 3. Build trust by matching words with honest actions. Trust is one of the most valuable things a person can earn, yet it cannot be demanded, purchased, or created through clever words alone. It grows quietly through consistent behavior. Every promise kept, every honest decision made, and every action that reflects integrity becomes another reason for people to believe in you. At the same time, trust can disappear surprisingly fast when words and actions begin moving in different directions. People may forgive a mistake, but they struggle to believe someone whose behavior repeatedly contradicts what they say. Many individuals spend enormous energy trying to appear trustworthy. They make impressive promises, speak confidently about their values, and describe the kind of person they hope others see. While these efforts may create a positive first impression, appearances never replace character. Sooner or later, reality reveals itself. People watch what you do far more closely than they remember what you say. They notice whether your habits support your principles. They observe how you behave when no reward is waiting and no audience is watching. Character is demonstrated through ordinary choices. It is revealed when you return a message after saying you would. It appears when you admit an error instead of hiding it. It becomes visible when you remain fair, even though taking advantage of someone would be easier. These moments rarely receive public attention, yet they shape your reputation more than dramatic achievements ever could. The Stoic philosophers believed that virtue should guide every action. They understood that a meaningful life is built through consistent conduct, rather than impressive speeches. A person who claims to value honesty, but regularly deceives others, weakens their own foundation. Another person may speak very little, yet live with such integrity that others naturally trust them. Respect follows reliability, not performance. Imagine meeting two different people. The first speaks enthusiastically about loyalty, responsibility, and commitment, yet often arrives late, forgets promises, and avoids difficult conversations. The second rarely makes grand declarations, but fulfills every responsibility with care. Over time, which person would you trust with an important task? Most people would choose the second without hesitation, because dependable actions create confidence that words alone cannot achieve. One of the greatest mistakes people make is promising more than they can realistically deliver. In the moment, making a generous promise feels good. It creates excitement and approval. Later, reality arrives. Time becomes limited. Priorities change. Responsibilities increase. The promise is delayed, ignored, or quietly forgotten. Although the original intention may have been sincere, disappointment still follows. A wiser approach is to promise carefully and deliver consistently. There is strength in saying only what you truly intend to do. This habit may seem less impressive at first, but it produces lasting credibility. People eventually learn that when you give your word, they can rely on it. Keeping promises to yourself deserves equal attention. Many people think integrity exists only in relationships with others, but your relationship with yourself shapes every other area of life. If you repeatedly promise yourself that you will develop a new habit, complete an important task, or improve a weakness, yet continually ignore those commitments, your confidence begins to fade. You start doubting your own discipline because your actions repeatedly contradict your intentions. Self-trust develops in the same way that trust with others develops. It grows each time you follow through on a commitment, even a small one. Waking up when you plan to wake up, finishing work before seeking entertainment, exercising despite a lack of motivation, or completing a responsibility before relaxing teaches your mind an important lesson. Your word has value. You become someone you can depend on. Honesty requires courage, because the truth is not always comfortable. There are moments when admitting a mistake feels embarrassing. There are situations where telling the complete truth may cost an opportunity or invite criticism. In those moments, many people search for excuses, partial truths, or convenient explanations. They hope to protect themselves without appearing dishonest, yet dishonesty creates a burden that honesty never carries. A lie often requires another lie to support it. Hidden actions demand constant protection. Fear of being discovered quietly follows every conversation. Honesty, even when difficult, brings freedom because nothing needs to be remembered except the truth. This does not mean speaking harshly or sharing every thought without wisdom. Honesty should always be guided by kindness and respect. There is an important difference between being truthful and being unnecessarily hurtful. A thoughtful communicator considers both accuracy and compassion. Truth delivered with respect strengthens relationships far more effectively than truth delivered with anger. Another important part of building trust is consistency. Many people behave differently depending on who is present. They are respectful toward those with authority, but dismissive toward those they believe have little influence. They become generous when others are watching, but indifferent when recognition disappears. Such inconsistency eventually becomes obvious. Integrity means remaining guided by the same values regardless of the audience. It means treating the receptionist with the same courtesy shown to the company director. It means showing appreciation to family members with the same sincerity offered to strangers. Genuine character does not change according to convenience. People often remember how you treated them during difficult seasons more than during successful ones. Anyone can be supportive when life is easy. Real loyalty appears when circumstances become challenging. If a friend experiences failure, illness, financial hardship, or personal loss, your steady presence communicates far more than comforting words ever could. Reliability also includes respecting other people's time. Arriving consistently late sends a quiet message that your schedule matters more than theirs. Frequently canceling plans at the last moment creates uncertainty. Ignoring responsibilities forces others to carry burdens that were never theirs. Small habits like punctuality, preparation, and follow-through may seem ordinary, but they demonstrate respect in practical ways. Apologizing sincerely is another expression of honest character. Everyone makes mistakes. No one communicates perfectly. No one behaves wisely in every situation. The question is not whether mistakes will happen. The question is how you respond when they do. A meaningful apology avoids excuses. Instead of explaining away your behavior, acknowledge its impact. Accept responsibility without shifting blame onto circumstances or other people. Then demonstrate your sincerity by making changes. Apologies become believable when behavior improves afterward. Without changed actions, repeated apologies gradually lose their meaning. Forgiveness from others cannot be demanded. It must be given freely. Your responsibility is simply to correct what can be corrected and continue living with integrity. Whether another person immediately rebuilds trust is beyond your control. Patience becomes necessary because trust often returns slowly after it has been damaged. Transparency strengthens confidence in relationships. This does not require revealing every private detail of your life. Rather, it means avoiding unnecessary secrecy about matters that affect others. Open communication reduces confusion. When expectations are clear, disappointments become less frequent. Humility also plays an essential role. People trust individuals who are willing to learn. Someone who refuses correction or insists on appearing perfect creates distance. In contrast, admitting that you still have room to grow makes you more approachable. Growth becomes possible only when pride no longer blocks improvement. Generosity without expectation builds another layer of trust. Help others because it is the right thing to do, not because you expect future favors. Offer encouragement without calculating personal benefit. Share knowledge without fearing that someone else's success will reduce your own. People recognize genuine generosity because it asks for nothing in return. Patience is equally important. Lasting trust cannot be rushed. Some relationships require months or even years before confidence becomes strong. Trying to force closeness usually creates the opposite effect. Allow people to observe your consistency over time. Reliable behavior repeated often enough speaks more convincingly than any attempt to persuade. Guard against making commitments during moments of excitement. Enthusiasm can easily exceed wisdom. Before agreeing to a responsibility, honestly evaluate your available time, energy, and ability. Declining respectfully is often more honorable than accepting enthusiastically and failing later. It is also wise to examine the small promises made throughout the day. Saying, "I'll call you tomorrow," "I'll finish this tonight," or "I'll take care of it later," may seem insignificant, yet these statements accumulate. Every fulfilled commitment strengthens your reputation. Every forgotten commitment weakens it slightly. Trust is rarely built through one extraordinary action. It grows through hundreds of ordinary moments handled with care. People are naturally drawn toward those who create emotional safety. Emotional safety exists when others know they will not be mocked for expressing vulnerability, criticized unfairly for making mistakes, or betrayed after sharing something personal. Protecting another person's confidence demonstrates maturity. Gossip may create temporary entertainment, but it quietly destroys credibility. If you regularly speak carelessly about absent people, others eventually wonder what you say when they leave the room. Choosing discretion over gossip reflects respect. It communicates that private conversations remain private. This simple discipline encourages openness because people feel secure in your presence. There will also be moments when honesty requires saying no. Some requests conflict with your values, your responsibilities, or your capacity. Agreeing merely to avoid disappointing someone often creates greater disappointment later. A respectful refusal delivered with sincerity preserves integrity better than an insincere agreement that cannot be honored. As your life becomes increasingly aligned with your words, communication itself changes. You no longer feel pressure to convince people of your character because your daily conduct provides the evidence. Confidence becomes quieter. Your promises become fewer but stronger. Your relationships deepen because people experience consistencies instead of uncertainty. Eventually, something remarkable begins to happen. Friends seek your advice because they trust your judgment. Family members rely on your presence because they know you will remain dependable. Colleagues value your contributions because your actions repeatedly confirm your commitment. This influence does not come from charisma, popularity, or persuasive language. It grows from a life where speech and behavior move together in harmony. True trust is built one decision at a time. Every honest choice, every fulfilled commitment, every respectful interaction, and every act of integrity adds another stone to a foundation that becomes stronger with each passing day. A person whose actions consistently reflect their words does not need to demand respect or convince others of their sincerity. Their life becomes the message. Their character becomes their strongest form of communication. And long after impressive speeches have been forgotten, The memory of their integrity continues to inspire confidence in everyone fortunate enough to know them. Chapter 4. Control emotions so your message stays calm and respectful. Every conversation carries more than words. It also carries feelings, expectations, memories, and personal experiences that influence how those words are received. Two people can say exactly the same sentence, yet create completely different results because of the emotional state behind their voice. A calm mind communicates with clarity, while an unsettled mind often creates confusion. This is why mastering communication begins with mastering yourself. Before guiding another person's understanding, learn to guide your own emotions. Emotions are a natural part of being human. They help you recognize joy, disappointment, gratitude, fear, excitement, and compassion. They remind you that experiences matter. The challenge is not having emotions. The challenge is preventing temporary emotions from controlling permanent relationships. A single moment of uncontrolled anger can damage trust that took years to build. One careless response can leave a memory that remains long after the conversation has ended. Many people believe emotional control means hiding their feelings or pretending that difficult emotions do not exist. That approach rarely succeeds. Feelings that are ignored often return with greater intensity. Real emotional discipline is different. It begins by recognizing what you feel, without allowing those feelings to decide what you say or how you behave. The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. They never suggested becoming cold or disconnected from life. Instead, they encouraged people to respond wisely rather than react impulsively. They recognized that external events are often beyond our control, but our response remains our responsibility. This simple principle transforms communication. You cannot control another person's tone, attitude, or behavior, but you always have influence over your own. Imagine someone speaking harshly to you during a disagreement. Your first reaction may be to answer with equal intensity. Your heartbeat increases, your thoughts race, your mind begins collecting arguments before the other person even finishes speaking. At that moment, the conversation is no longer focused on solving a problem. It becomes a struggle to protect pride. Once that happens, meaningful communication becomes much more difficult. The strongest response is rarely the fastest one. Giving yourself even a few seconds before replying creates space between emotion and action. Those few seconds may seem insignificant, yet they often determine whether a conversation moves toward understanding or unnecessary conflict. One of the simplest ways to create this space is through conscious breathing. When emotions become intense, breathing naturally becomes shorter and faster. By intentionally slowing your breathing, send a message to your body that immediate danger is not present. Your thoughts become clearer, your voice becomes steadier, and your ability to choose your words improves. This small habit requires no special equipment or training, yet it has the power to change the direction of an entire conversation. Awareness is another essential skill. Many emotional reactions happen so quickly that people never stop to identify what they are actually feeling. They simply react. Instead, develop the habit of naming your emotion privately. Perhaps you feel disappointed instead of angry. Perhaps you feel embarrassed instead of frustrated. Perhaps fear is hiding beneath irritation. Identifying the true emotion gives you greater control because you are no longer responding to confusion. You are responding to reality. Self-awareness also helps you recognize emotional patterns. Maybe criticism affects you more strongly than you realized. Perhaps being interrupted creates immediate frustration. Certain topics may remind you of painful experiences from the past. Understanding these patterns allows you to prepare rather than being surprised by them. Preparation is a quiet form of strength. Before entering an important discussion, especially one involving disagreement, remind yourself of your purpose. Are you trying to solve a problem, strengthen a relationship, or simply prove that you are right? This question helps guide your behavior. When your purpose remains clear, emotional distractions lose much of their influence. Respect should remain constant even when opinions differ. Disagreement is a normal part of life. Families disagree, friends disagree, colleagues disagree. Different perspectives often lead to better decisions because they reveal ideas that one person alone might never consider. The problem is not disagreement itself. The problem begins when disagreement becomes disrespect. Respectful communication allows two people to hold different opinions without attacking each other's character. Instead of making personal accusations, focus on the issue being discussed. Instead of assuming harmful intentions, ask for clarification. This approach keeps the conversation productive because attention remains on solving the problem rather than creating new ones. Your choice of words matters greatly during emotional moments. Certain phrases immediately increase tension because they sound absolute or accusatory. Statements such as "you always do this" or "you never listen" leave little room for understanding. They encourage defensiveness instead of reflection. More balanced language creates space for conversation. Describing a specific situation is often more helpful than making broad judgments about someone's entire character. Tone deserves just as much attention as vocabulary. A respectful sentence spoken with contempt loses its value. Likewise, a difficult truth delivered gently becomes easier to receive. People often remember the feeling created by your tone long after they forget the exact words you used. Speaking with calmness does not weaken your message. It strengthens its ability to reach another person's mind without unnecessary resistance. Patience is especially valuable when emotions are high. Some conversations require more time than expected. Rushing someone who is hurt, disappointed, or confused usually increases their frustration. Allowing enough time for both people to express themselves demonstrate maturity. Solutions discovered through patience often last longer because everyone involved feels respected. There are moments when the wisest decision is to delay a conversation. If emotions have become overwhelming, continuing immediately may only create additional harm. Choosing to return to the discussion later is not avoidance if both people understand that the conversation will continue. It is an act of responsibility. Time allows emotions to settle, making thoughtful communication more likely. Forgiveness also supports emotional balance. Holding on to resentment affects future conversations, even those unrelated to the original event. Unresolved bitterness often appears through sarcasm, coldness, or unnecessary criticism. Letting go does not erase the past or excuse harmful behavior. It simply frees you from allowing yesterday's pain to control today's communication. Compassion changes the way you interpret difficult interactions. Every person carries burdens that remain invisible to others. Someone may be dealing with financial pressure, personal loss, health concerns, or deep disappointment without saying a single word about it. Remembering this possibility encourages kindness instead of quick judgment. Compassion does not require agreeing with inappropriate behavior, but it reminds you that every person is more than the worst moment they display. Emotional control also includes celebrating positive emotions wisely. Excitement can sometimes lead people to make promises they cannot keep or reveal information that should remain private. Success may tempt someone toward arrogance. Joy should be expressed freely, but even positive emotions benefit from thoughtful self-control. Daily habits influence emotional stability more than many people realize. Adequate rest, regular physical activity, healthy eating, and quiet moments of reflection all contribute to clearer thinking. A constantly exhausted mind becomes less patient and more reactive. Caring for your physical well-being supports your emotional resilience because the body and mind work together. Gratitude is another powerful practice. Taking time each day to notice what is going well changes the way you approach conversations. A grateful person is less likely to become consumed by minor frustrations because their attention is not fixed entirely on what is missing. Gratitude creates perspective, and perspective reduces unnecessary emotional intensity. Learning to apologize sincerely also reflects emotional maturity. Pride often encourages people to defend every action, even when they know they behaved poorly. True strength appears when you can calmly acknowledge that your emotions influenced your behavior in an unhealthy way. Accepting responsibility without excuses demonstrates confidence rather than weakness. There will always be individuals who attempt to provoke emotional reactions. Some criticize unfairly, others speak disrespectfully or intentionally create conflict. You cannot control their choices, but you can decide whether to allow them control over your peace of mind. Remaining calm does not mean accepting poor treatment. It means refusing to let another person's lack of self-control determine your own behavior. Silence can sometimes communicate greater wisdom than immediate words. Not every criticism deserves a response. Not every disagreement requires a debate. Learning to recognize which conversations deserve your energy protects both your relationships and your inner peace. Choosing silence at the right moment is not surrender. It is disciplined judgment. As emotional discipline becomes part of your daily life, people begin noticing a quiet reliability in your presence. They recognize that you do not create unnecessary drama. They feel safe sharing concerns because they know you will respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Difficult conversations become more productive because your steady approach encourages others to become calmer as well. This transformation does not happen through perfection. There will still be moments when frustration appears or patience becomes difficult. Growth comes from recovering more quickly, reflecting honestly, and choosing a better response the next time. Every conversation becomes another opportunity to strengthen this ability. The greatest communicators are not those who always have the perfect words prepared. They are the people who remain composed when circumstances become challenging. Their calmness creates confidence. Their respect encourages openness. Their emotional discipline allows difficult truths to be spoken without unnecessary harm. They understand that every conversation offers a choice. One path is controlled by impulse, pride, and temporary emotion. The other is guided by wisdom, patience, and self-mastery. Choosing the second path again and again builds relationships that endure, earns respect that cannot be forced, and allows every message to carry the quiet strength of a person who has first learned to lead themselves before attempting to influence anyone else. Chapter 5. Ask thoughtful questions to invite open, meaningful conversation. Some of the most meaningful conversations do not begin with impressive speeches. They begin with a sincere question. A well-chosen question has the power to open minds, strengthen relationships, uncover valuable ideas, and help another person feel genuinely appreciated. While many people concentrate on finding the perfect answer, truly effective communicators understand that asking the right question often creates far greater value. Questions invite participation instead of control. They encourage discovery instead of assumption. They remind people that every conversation is an opportunity to learn rather than simply an opportunity to speak. Every person carries experiences, lessons, hopes, disappointments, and dreams that remain invisible until someone creates a safe space for them to be shared. Thoughtful questions provide that space. They communicate interest without pressure. They tell another person that their perspective matters. This simple act changes the atmosphere of a conversation because it shifts attention away from proving something and toward understanding something. Many conversations remain shallow because the questions are shallow. Asking someone whether they are busy or whether everything is fine often leads to short, automatic responses. People answer from habit because the questions require very little reflection. Meaningful communication grows when questions invite people to think, remember, and explain. Instead of encouraging a single word, they encourage a story, an idea, or a feeling. Curiosity is the foundation of this habit. Genuine curiosity cannot be faked for very long. People recognize the difference between someone who asks questions simply to be polite and someone who truly wants to understand. Real curiosity comes from accepting that every individual knows something you do not know. No matter a person's age, profession, education, or background, they have lived experiences that are different from yours. Those experiences contain lessons that cannot be learned from books alone. The Stoic philosophers believed that wisdom begins by recognizing the limits of your own knowledge. This perspective encourages humility. Instead of assuming you already understand another person's situation, you become willing to explore it. Questions become tools for learning rather than weapons for winning arguments. They create opportunities to replace assumptions with understanding. One of the greatest barriers to meaningful conversation is believing that you already know what another person thinks. Familiarity sometimes creates false confidence. You may believe you know a friend so well that there is nothing new to discover. You may assume that a family member's opinion has remained unchanged for years. Yet, people continue growing through every season of life. Their priorities evolve, their understanding deepens, their experiences shape new perspectives. Asking thoughtful questions allows you to discover the person they have become, instead of relying only on who they were in the past. Meaningful questions require patience, because meaningful answers cannot be rushed. Many people ask a question only to interrupt before the response is complete. Others immediately shift the conversation back to themselves. This habit weakens the value of the question because it communicates that the answer was never the real priority. If you ask, remain fully present for the response. Give the other person enough time to gather their thoughts, without feeling pressured to speak quickly. Silence often becomes an important part of this process. After asking a thoughtful question, resist the urge to fill every pause. Reflection takes time. Some people organize their thoughts carefully before answering. Others need a quiet moment to find the right words. Allowing that silence demonstrates respect. It shows that you value depth more than speed. Another important habit is asking questions without hidden motives. Sometimes people disguise criticism as curiosity. Instead of seeking understanding, they ask questions designed to embarrass, challenge, or expose another person. These questions create defensiveness rather than openness. Their purpose is not connection but control. Genuine questions come from a desire to understand another person's thinking, not from a desire to prove them wrong. Kindness should shape every question you ask. Difficult subjects sometimes need to be discussed, but they can still be approached with compassion. A respectful question encourages honesty because it reduces fear of judgment. People become more willing to share their true thoughts when they sense that they will be treated fairly, even if their opinions differ from yours. Thoughtful questions also strengthen leadership. Whether you are guiding a family, managing a team, teaching students, or supporting friends, asking questions often produces better results than giving immediate instructions. Instead of assuming you already know the best solution, invite others to contribute their ideas. This approach encourages responsibility because people naturally invest more energy in solutions they helped create. Children respond especially well to this approach. Instead of immediately correcting every mistake, ask questions that encourage them to think about their choices. Help them discover lessons rather than simply receiving them. This process develops judgment, confidence, and independence. Adults benefit from the same approach because lasting growth often comes through personal reflection rather than external commands. Questions also play a powerful role during disagreements. When emotions begin rising, curiosity becomes more valuable than accusation. Instead of assuming another person's intentions, ask them to explain their perspective. Instead of responding with immediate criticism, seek clarification. Many conflicts grow because people argue against conclusions they have imagined rather than ideas that were actually intended. Clarifying questions prevent unnecessary misunderstandings. Sometimes a single explanation reveals that two people agree on far more than they first believed. Even when differences remain, Understanding the reasons behind another person's opinion creates greater respect. Respect does not require agreement. It requires recognizing another person's humanity, even when their conclusions differ from your own. Avoid asking questions that have only one acceptable answer in your mind. These questions are not invitations. They are attempts to guide someone toward your preferred conclusion. Open conversation requires openness from both people. If you ask for another person's opinion, be prepared to hear something different from your own expectations. Develop the habit of exploring experiences instead of making assumptions about them. Every challenge teaches something. Every success requires effort. Every disappointment leaves a lesson. Questions that encourage people to reflect on these experiences often produce conversations that are memorable because they move beyond surface details and into personal growth. People also appreciate questions that recognize their strengths. Too often conversations focus only on problems, mistakes, and difficulties. Asking someone about a meaningful achievement, an important lesson they have learned, or a moment they feel proud of allows them to reconnect with positive experiences. Such conversations strengthen confidence while creating a more encouraging atmosphere. There is also wisdom in knowing when not to ask certain questions. Curiosity should never become intrusion. Respect personal boundaries. Some experiences remain deeply private, and people should never feel pressured to share more than they are comfortable revealing. If someone chooses not to answer, honor that decision gracefully. Trust grows when people know they control what they choose to disclose. Thoughtful questions improve professional relationships as well. Instead of focusing only on tasks and deadlines, take time to understand how colleagues approach challenges, what motivates them, and what obstacles they face. This deeper understanding leads to better cooperation because solutions become tailored to real needs instead of assumptions. Friendships also become stronger through meaningful curiosity. As life changes, continue asking about goals, struggles, interests, and hopes. Long-term relationships remain vibrant when people continue discovering new things about one another. Familiarity should never replace genuine interest. Questions can even improve your relationship with yourself. Personal growth depends on honest self-examination. At the end of each day, ask yourself whether your actions reflected your values. Consider what you handled well and where improvement is needed. Reflect on the conversations that brought peace and those that created tension. These private questions gradually strengthen wisdom because they encourage continuous learning instead of automatic living. Many people fear asking questions because they worry about appearing uninformed. In reality, thoughtful questions often reveal confidence rather than weakness. They demonstrate that learning matters more than protecting pride. A person who asks sincere questions continues growing throughout life because every conversation becomes a classroom. Humility remains an essential companion to curiosity. The moment you believe there is nothing left to learn, growth begins to slow. Every person you meet has encountered situations you have never experienced. Every culture, profession, generation, and background offers insights that can expand your understanding if you are willing to ask and willing to listen. Meaningful conversation also requires appreciation for different viewpoints. Sometimes another person's answer challenges your assumptions. Instead of rejecting it immediately, examine it carefully. Ask yourself what truth might exist within their perspective. Growth often begins with ideas that first make us uncomfortable because they invite us to reconsider long-held beliefs. Another valuable habit is expressing gratitude after someone shares something meaningful. Honest appreciation encourages future openness. People become more willing to share their experiences when they know those experiences are received with respect rather than indifference. A simple expression of gratitude can strengthen trust because it acknowledges the value of another person's honesty. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of your conversations. and the quality of your conversations is often determined by the quality of your questions. Every thoughtful question creates an opportunity to replace distance with understanding, uncertainty with clarity, and isolation with connection. It reminds people that their thoughts have value and that their experiences deserve attention. As this habit becomes part of your character, conversations begin to change naturally. People feel more comfortable speaking openly because they recognize your sincere interest. Relationships deepen because they are built on understanding instead of assumption. Opportunities to learn appear everywhere because every interaction becomes a chance to discover something new. Over time, you realize that wisdom is not measured by how many answers you can give. It is also measured by the questions you choose to ask, the patience with which you receive the answers, and the respect you show to every person who entrusts you with a part of their story. Chapter 6. Improve body language to support your spoken message. Words are only one part of communication. Long before a sentence is finished, people begin forming impressions through what they see. The way you stand, the expression on your face, the movement of your hands, and even the direction of your attention quietly influence how your message is received. These signals often speak before your voice does, and they continue speaking after your final sentence has ended. When your body language supports your words, people find it easier to trust what you say. When your actions send a different message, confusion quickly appears, no matter how carefully your sentences are chosen. Many people spend years improving their vocabulary while paying very little attention to the silent habits that shape every conversation. They focus on finding better words but overlook the posture that suggests confidence, the facial expression that communicates warmth, or the attentive presence that makes another person feel valued. Communication becomes stronger when spoken language and physical presence work together. Instead of competing with one another, body language is not about acting or pretending. It is not a performance designed to impress people. Genuine communication begins with authenticity. The purpose of improving your physical presence is not to create a false image. It is to allow your outward behavior to reflect your true intentions more clearly. When your thoughts, words, and actions remain aligned, people naturally experience greater confidence in your character. The Stoic philosophers often emphasized the importance of self-discipline in every aspect of life. They believed that inner character should be visible through outward conduct. A calm mind influences a calm appearance. Respect for others becomes visible through thoughtful behavior. Confidence appears through steady composure rather than unnecessary display. This perspective reminds us that body language begins inside. Your physical presence often reflects the condition of your thoughts. Posture is one of the first signals people notice. Standing upright does not require stiffness or exaggerated confidence. It simply communicates that you are alert, present, and engaged. A balanced posture allows your breathing to remain steady, your voice to become clearer, and your movements to appear more natural. Slouching or collapsing inward may unintentionally suggest uncertainty or lack of interest, even when your intentions are completely different. Good posture also influences the way you feel about yourself. Physical position and mental state affect one another. When you carry yourself with quiet stability, your thoughts often become more focused. This is not about appearing superior to anyone else. It is about presenting yourself with dignity and self-respect. Your face communicates constantly, even when you are silent. A relaxed and attentive expression invites conversation because it creates a sense of openness. People often decide whether they feel comfortable continuing a discussion based on the emotional signals they observe in another person's face. If your expression appears distracted, impatient, or irritated, they may begin withholding thoughts that would otherwise have been shared. A genuine smile also carries remarkable influence. It does not need to appear constantly or artificially. Forced smiles usually create discomfort because they lack sincerity. However, a natural smile offered at appropriate moments communicates friendliness, appreciation, and approachability. It reduces unnecessary tension and helps conversations begin on a positive note. Your eyes play an important role in creating connection. Looking toward the person you are speaking with demonstrates attention and respect. Constantly looking away, staring at a phone, or allowing your gaze to wander around the room can unintentionally communicate boredom or distraction. At the same time, balance remains important. Comfortable eye contact feels natural, while prolonged staring may create unnecessary pressure. The goal is simple attentiveness rather than intensity. Your hands also contribute to communication. Calm, purposeful gestures can help explain ideas and emphasize important points. Constant fidgeting, however, may distract listeners because their attention shifts from your message to your movements. Many people play with pens, adjust clothing repeatedly, or tap their fingers without realizing it. These habits often appear during moments of nervousness. Becoming aware of them is the first step toward reducing them. Slow and deliberate movements generally communicate greater composure than restless activity. There is no need to eliminate every gesture. In fact, natural movement often makes communication more engaging. The key is ensuring that gestures support your message rather than compete with it. Personal space deserves careful attention as well. Every person has different levels of comfort regarding physical distance. Standing too close may create discomfort, while standing unnecessarily far away may create emotional distance. Respecting another person's personal space demonstrates consideration for their comfort. Observing their reactions helps you adjust naturally without making the interaction awkward. Movement within a conversation should also reflect purpose. Constant pacing, shifting weight excessively, or repeatedly checking the time can distract from your message. Stillness, when comfortable and natural, often communicates confidence because it suggests that you are fully engaged in the present moment. The way you enter a room quietly shapes first impressions. Walking with calm purpose, acknowledging others respectfully, and appearing present rather than rushed establishes a positive tone before any conversation begins. First impressions are not everything, but they often influence how willing people are to listen. Your appearance also communicates messages before you speak. This does not require expensive clothing or following every trend. Instead, it reflects self-respect and awareness of the situation. Dressing appropriately for the environment demonstrates consideration for the people you are meeting and the responsibilities you are fulfilling. Cleanliness, organization, and attention to simple details communicate professionalism and reliability. Baby language becomes especially important during challenging conversations. When discussing sensitive topics, defensive gestures often appear automatically. Crossing your arms tightly, turning your body away, rolling your eyes, or displaying visible impatience may unintentionally increase tension. Choosing a more open posture encourages cooperation because it signals that you remain willing to engage respectfully. Your breathing influences your entire physical presence. Rapid breathing often creates visible signs of anxiety. Shoulders become tense, movements become hurried. Your voice may lose stability. Slower breathing allows your body to relax naturally, making every aspect of your communication appear more composed. Before important conversations, take a few quiet moments to breathe steadily. This simple habit prepares both your body and your mind. Observation is another valuable skill. Pay attention to the body language of others, not for the purpose of judging them, but to better understand the conversation. Someone leaning forward may be deeply interested. A thoughtful pause accompanied by quiet reflection may indicate careful consideration rather than disagreement. Changes in posture, facial expression, or energy sometimes reveal confusion, enthusiasm, or concern before those feelings are expressed verbally. However, avoid assuming that every physical movement has one fixed meaning. Human behavior is complex. Someone may cross their arms simply because they feel cold, Another person may avoid eye contact because they are shy rather than dishonest. Body language should be understood within the broader context of the relationship and conversation. Wise communicators observe carefully without rushing to conclusions. Confidence grows through familiarity and practice rather than perfection. Many people become overly self-conscious after learning about body language. They begin analyzing every movement, wondering whether their hands are positioned correctly or whether they smiled enough. This excessive focus often creates more tension than improvement. The goal is not flawless behavior. The goal is natural presence guided by awareness. Practicing in everyday situations builds this awareness gradually. Notice your posture while speaking with family members. Observe your facial expression during routine conversations. Become aware of how you sit during meetings or how you greet neighbors. These ordinary moments provide valuable opportunities for improvement without the pressure of high-stakes situations. Recording yourself during practice presentations or conversations can also reveal habits you may never notice otherwise. Perhaps you speak while looking downward. Maybe your hands move constantly without purpose. You might discover that your posture changes whenever you become uncertain. These observations are not reasons for criticism, they are opportunities for growth. Your physical presence should also reflect respect during moments when you are not speaking. Listening attentively includes more than hearing words. Facing the speaker, maintaining an interested expression, and remaining engaged without obvious distraction encourage others to continue sharing their thoughts. Silent attention often communicates appreciation more effectively than frequent interruptions or unnecessary comments. Body language becomes especially powerful when offering encouragement. A warm expression, a reassuring nod, or a calm presence can provide comfort even before supportive words are spoken. During difficult moments, people often remember how safe they felt in someone's presence more vividly than the exact advice they received. Cultural differences also deserve consideration. Gestures, personal space, and forms of eye contact vary across communities and traditions. Respectful communicators remain sensitive to these differences instead of assuming that every custom is universal. Humility allows you to adapt appropriately while continuing to communicate with kindness and understanding. Consistency remains essential. If your words express concern while your actions reveal impatience, people naturally become uncertain about your true intentions. If you claim to value another person's opinion but repeatedly check your phone while they are speaking, your behavior weakens your message. Every conversation becomes stronger when your physical actions reinforce the values you wish to express. Developing positive body language is not about becoming someone different. It is about removing habits that unintentionally interfere with your message while strengthening behaviors that reflect your genuine character. As this alignment grows, conversations become more comfortable because your presence communicates the same qualities as your words. Over time, you will notice subtle but meaningful changes. People respond with greater openness. Professional interactions become smoother. Family discussions feel more relaxed. New relationships begin with less hesitation because your physical presence creates an atmosphere of trust and respect. Confidence no longer depends solely on speaking well. It becomes visible through the calm way you carry yourself, the attention you offer others, and the quiet consistency between your intentions and your actions. In the end, effective communication is never limited to what leaves your mouth. It includes every expression of your character that another person can observe. Your posture reflects your self-respect. Your attention reflects your care. Your expressions reflect your attitude. Your actions reflect your values. When all of these elements work together in harmony, your message gains a quiet strength that no amount of persuasive language alone can achieve. People not only hear what you say, they believe it because every part of your presence communicates the same truth. Chapter 7. Speak with purpose so every word adds value. Many conversations lose their impact not because people lack intelligence, but because they speak without direction. Words are used too freely, without intention, without clarity, and without consideration for whether they actually contribute anything meaningful. Speaking with purpose is the discipline of choosing words carefully, so that each sentence carries value, direction, and relevance. It is the difference between filling silence and shaping understanding. A purposeful speaker does not treat communication as an automatic response to every situation. Instead, they pause internally before speaking and consider why they are about to say something. This moment of reflection changes everything. It filters unnecessary noise, reduces confusion, and strengthens the quality of what remains. Many problems in communication do not come from lack of knowledge, but from excess words that dilute meaning. There is a natural tendency in human conversation to speak more than necessary, especially during moments of uncertainty. Silence often feels uncomfortable, so people rush to fill it. In doing so, they may repeat ideas, add unrelated details, or drift away from the original point. Over time, this habit weakens clarity. Listeners begin to struggle with identifying the core message because it becomes hidden inside layers of unnecessary explanation. Speaking with purpose begins with understanding your intention. Before opening your mouth, it helps to recognize what outcome you want from the conversation. Are you trying to inform someone, resolve a misunderstanding, offer guidance, or simply share an experience? Without this clarity, speech becomes scattered. With clarity, words begin to organize themselves naturally around a central idea. A disciplined communicator respects both their own time and the time of others. Every sentence is considered in terms of usefulness. If a phrase does not contribute meaning, it is unnecessary. If an explanation repeats what has already been understood, it becomes noise. This does not mean speaking less for the sake of brevity alone. It means speaking in a way where each part of the message serves a clear function. Stoic thinking aligns closely with this principle. It encourages restraint, awareness, and deliberate action. Just as unnecessary actions weaken efficiency, unnecessary words weaken communication. A person who speaks with purpose avoids reacting impulsively. Instead, they choose language that reflects thoughtfulness rather than emotion-driven overflow. One of the strongest habits in purposeful communication is the ability to pause before responding. That brief moment allows the mind to sort through thoughts and identify what truly needs to be said. Without this pause, speech often becomes reactive. Reactions are rarely precise. They tend to carry emotional weight, assumptions, or incomplete understanding. A pause transforms reaction into response, and response carries far greater clarity. Clarity is not about using complex language. In fact, complexity often reduces understanding. True clarity comes from simplicity. Simple sentences communicate ideas directly without unnecessary layers. A clear message does not require the listener to interpret hidden meaning or guess the intention behind the words. It is straightforward, honest, and easy to follow. Many people underestimate how powerful simplicity can be. They assume that advanced vocabulary or detailed explanations make them sound more knowledgeable. However, communication is not judged by complexity but by comprehension. If the listener understands your message effortlessly, the communication has succeeded. If they are confused, no matter how advanced the language, the message has failed. Speaking with purpose also requires awareness of repetition. Repeating the same idea in slightly different ways often weakens impact rather than strengthening it. Once a point is understood, continuing to restate it can create frustration or boredom. Trust in your listener's ability to understand without excessive reinforcement. At the same time, purposeful speech avoids unnecessary detours. Tangents that drift away from the main idea may feel natural in casual conversation, but they often dilute meaning. A focused speaker stays close to the central point. If additional information is needed, it is included only when it supports understanding rather than distracting from it. Respect for attention is a core part of purposeful communication. Attention is limited. Every listener has a finite capacity to process information. When speech becomes overloaded with irrelevant details, that attention weakens. When every sentence serves a purpose, attention remains engaged because the mind recognizes value in what is being said. Another important aspect is knowing when not to speak. Silence is often misunderstood as emptiness, but in communication it can be powerful. There are moments when words do not improve understanding. In such moments, restraint communicates more wisdom than speech. Choosing silence when appropriate prevents unnecessary conflict, avoids misinterpretation, and protects clarity. A purposeful communicator also understands the importance of timing. Even valuable information loses effectiveness when delivered at the wrong moment. Speaking too early may confuse the listener. Speaking too late may reduce relevance. Awareness of timing ensures that words land where they are most effective. Emotional awareness plays a major role in purposeful speech. When emotions are strong, words often become exaggerated or distorted. Anger may lead to harshness, excitement may lead to overstatement, anxiety may lead to unnecessary explanation. Recognizing emotional influence before speaking helps maintain balance and precision. A calm mind produces precise language. This is why internal stability is essential for external clarity. When thoughts are organized, speech naturally becomes structured. When thoughts are chaotic, speech reflects that confusion. Purposeful communication always begins with internal order. Another key practice is avoiding filler language. Words that do not add meaning, such as unnecessary qualifiers or repetitive phrases, slow down communication and reduce impact. Eliminating them makes speech more direct and easier to understand. It also strengthens the authority of your message because it removes hesitation and uncertainty. Listening also supports purposeful speaking. When you listen carefully before responding, you reduce the risk of repeating information that has already been addressed. You gain clarity about what is actually needed in the conversation. This prevents unnecessary speech and ensures that your response contributes something meaningful rather than redundant. A purposeful speaker also adapts to their audience. Not every listener requires the same level of detail. Some need simplicity, others benefit from explanation, and some prefer direct answers. Adjusting your communication style based on context ensures that your message remains relevant and effective. Over time, speaking with purpose changes how others perceive you. People begin to associate your words with clarity and reliability. They pay closer attention because they trust that what you say carries value. Conversations become more efficient because misunderstandings decrease. Your presence in dialogue becomes more impactful because you do not waste words. There is also a quiet confidence in speaking with purpose. It removes the need to constantly fill space or prove intelligence through excessive explanation. Instead, confidence is expressed through precision. A few well-chosen words often carry more weight than long explanations filled with unnecessary detail. This discipline also improves decision-making in communication. Instead of speaking immediately in every situation, you begin evaluating whether your input is truly needed. Sometimes the most effective contribution is brief. Sometimes it is better to let others speak first. Sometimes it is better to observe before responding. Each choice becomes intentional rather than automatic. As this habit strengthens, communication becomes lighter yet more powerful. Conversations feel less cluttered. Ideas become easier to follow. Misunderstandings decrease because messages are no longer buried under unnecessary language. Every interaction begins to feel more meaningful because nothing is wasted. Speaking with purpose ultimately reflects respect for yourself, for your listener, and for the conversation itself. It recognizes that words are not infinite resources to be spent carelessly. They are tools for understanding, connection, and clarity. When used wisely, they create alignment between intention and expression. When used without purpose, they create confusion. A person who masters this discipline does not need to speak constantly to be understood. Their words carry weight because they are chosen. Their communication becomes steady, clear, and reliable. Over time, people learn that when they speak, something meaningful is likely to follow. And in a world filled with noise, that kind of communication stands out not because it is loud, but because it is intentional. Chapter 8. Receive feedback honestly and use it to grow. Growth in communication does not come only from speaking better or choosing better words. It also comes from the ability to listen to how your words are received. Feedback is one of the most direct mirrors a person can encounter in life. It reveals what others actually experience when they interact with you, not what you assume they experience. Many people avoid feedback because it challenges their self-image, but those who learn to accept it honestly develop a level of awareness that cannot be achieved through self-reflection alone. At its core, feedback is information. It is not an attack, and it is not a final judgment of character. It is simply data about how your behavior, tone, choices, or communication affected another person. When viewed with this mindset, feedback becomes less emotional and more useful. The challenge is that most people do not receive feedback as information. They receive it as criticism. This reaction closes the mind before any learning can take place. A disciplined communicator learns to separate identity from behavior. A mistake in communication does not define who you are as a person. It describes an action that can be improved. Without this separation, even small pieces of feedback feel threatening. With it, feedback becomes a tool for refinement rather than a source of defense. The Stoic mindset encourages this level of emotional distance from judgment. Instead of reacting immediately to praise or criticism, it promotes reflection. What matters is not whether the feedback feels comfortable, but whether it contains truth that can help you improve. Comfort is not the goal of growth. Clarity is. One of the most important skills in receiving feedback is the ability to listen without interrupting. When someone is offering an observation about your behavior, the natural instinct is to defend yourself. You may feel misunderstood or misrepresented. You may want to explain your intention. However, interrupting too early prevents you from fully understanding their perspective. Listening completely first allows you to see the full picture before forming a response. Not all feedback will be perfectly delivered. Sometimes it will be vague, emotional, or even exaggerated. The value is not always in the tone or wording, but in the underlying message. A calm mind looks beyond surface language and focuses on what can be learned. Even poorly expressed feedback often contains useful insight if you are willing to extract it. Another essential habit is asking clarifying questions. Instead of rejecting feedback immediately or accepting it blindly, seek understanding. Ask what specific behavior was observed. Ask how it affected the other person. Ask what could have been done differently. These questions transform feedback from a general statement into actionable insight. They also show maturity because they demonstrate a willingness to understand rather than resist. Defensiveness is one of the biggest barriers to growth. It creates an automatic shield that rejects any information that feels uncomfortable. While this reaction may protect ego in the short term, it limits long-term development. A defensive mind hears feedback only as accusation. A receptive mind hears it as guidance. The difference between these two responses determines whether a person improves or remains stagnant. It is also important to recognize that feedback often reflects perception, not absolute truth. People interpret behavior through their own experiences and expectations. What one person perceives as impatience, another may interpret as focus. What one person sees as confidence, another may see as arrogance. Understanding this helps you process feedback without overreacting. Instead of accepting every comment as fact, you evaluate it thoughtfully. At the same time, repeated feedback from different people deserves serious attention. When multiple individuals notice similar patterns in your communication, it is likely pointing toward a real behavior worth adjusting. Ignoring consistent feedback creates blind spots that limit personal growth. Paying attention to patterns helps you identify areas that may not be visible from your own perspective. Receiving feedback effectively also requires emotional control. Some feedback may feel uncomfortable or surprising. It may challenge your assumptions about yourself. In these moments, staying calm is essential. Emotional reactions distort understanding. A calm response allows you to process information clearly and decide what is useful without unnecessary resistance. Gratitude plays an important role in this process. When someone takes the time to give you honest feedback, they are offering awareness that can help you improve. Even if the message is difficult to hear, the willingness to share it is valuable. Expressing appreciation does not mean agreeing with everything said. It simply acknowledges the effort behind the communication. Another powerful habit is reflection after receiving feedback. Instead of responding immediately, take time to think about what was said. Consider whether the feedback aligns with other experiences. Reflect on specific moments where the behavior may have occurred. This reflection transforms raw feedback into meaningful insight that can guide future behavior. Applying feedback is where real growth happens. Understanding alone is not enough. Change requires action. If feedback highlights unclear communication, focus on simplifying your explanations. If it points to interrupting others, practice patience in conversations. If it suggests emotional reactions, work on slowing down your responses. Improvement becomes visible only when insight is translated into behavior. However, not all feedback requires immediate change. Some feedback may not align with your values or may come from misunderstandings. The ability to discern what to accept and what to set aside is equally important. Blind acceptance can be just as limiting as complete rejection. Wisdom lies in evaluation, not reaction. It is also important to avoid seeking only positive feedback. While encouragement is valuable, it does not provide direction for improvement. Honest feedback, even when uncomfortable, reveals opportunities for growth that praise alone cannot offer. A balanced approach involves appreciating positive reinforcement while remaining open to constructive critique. Many people struggle with feedback because they tie their self-worth to external opinions. When this happens, criticism feels personal rather than instructional. Developing inner stability helps reduce this dependency. When your sense of value is grounded internally, feedback becomes easier to process objectively. It no longer defines you, it informs you. Listening to feedback also strengthens relationships. People are more willing to communicate honestly when they feel their input is respected. If you consistently reject feedback, others eventually stop offering it. This limits your awareness of how you are perceived. On the other hand, when you respond with openness, people feel safe sharing their observations, which deepens trust and understanding. There is also humility in accepting that you do not see yourself completely. No matter how self-aware you are, there will always be aspects of your behavior that are clearer to others than to yourself. Feedback helps bridge that gap. It provides perspectives that you cannot generate alone. Over time, a person who learns to receive feedback well becomes easier to communicate with. Conversations become more honest because there is less fear of negative reaction. Constructive discussions become more productive because they are not blocked by defensiveness. Relationships grow stronger because openness replaces avoidance. Growth through feedback is not a one-time achievement. It is a continuous practice. Each conversation, each correction, and each observation becomes part of a larger process of refinement. Instead of resisting discomfort, you begin to recognize it as a signal for potential improvement. Eventually, feedback stops feeling like criticism altogether. It becomes part of your learning process. You begin to welcome it because you understand its value. You no longer see it as something that threatens your identity, but as something that sharpens your abilities. This shift transforms communication into a dynamic process of constant improvement. A person who embraces feedback develops a rare quality. They are not defined by perfection, but by adaptability. They are willing to adjust, refine and grow based on new understanding. This flexibility strengthens every aspect of communication because it ensures that learning never stops. In the end, receiving feedback honestly is not about being corrected by others. It is about becoming aware of yourself through the eyes of others and using that awareness to evolve. When you learn to accept insight without defensiveness, reflect without bias, and apply change without resistance, communication becomes more than expression. It becomes a continuous path of improvement shaped by honesty, humility, and the willingness to grow beyond your current limitations. Chapter 9. Practice daily conversations to strengthen confidence and clarity. Confidence in communication is not built in rare or extraordinary moments. It is shaped quietly through ordinary conversations repeated every day. Many people believe they will become confident speakers only when they face important situations such as presentations, interviews, or difficult discussions. In reality, those moments only reveal the level of skill that has already been developed through everyday interaction. Daily conversations are the training ground where clarity, confidence, and ease are gradually formed. Every simple exchange carries value. A greeting, a question in a shop, a short discussion with a colleague, or a casual talk with a neighbor all serve as opportunities to refine communication. When approached with awareness, even the smallest interaction becomes practice. When ignored, those same moments pass without contributing to growth. The difference lies in attention. Confidence does not appear suddenly. It develops through repetition. The mind becomes more comfortable expressing thoughts when it has done so many times before. At first, conversations may feel uncertain or awkward. Words may not flow smoothly, and there may be hesitation in expression. This is natural. Skill in communication is not about avoiding discomfort but learning to function despite it. With repeated exposure, discomfort gradually reduces, and expression becomes more natural. Clarity also improves through consistent practice. When you speak every day, you begin to notice which words help understanding and which create confusion. You learn how to adjust explanations based on the listener's response. Over time, speech becomes more structured without needing deliberate effort. Ideas begin to organize themselves more efficiently because the mind has trained itself through repetition. Many people limit their growth by avoiding conversations that feel unfamiliar. They choose silence instead of participation because they fear making mistakes. However, avoidance prevents improvement. Communication develops only through use. Just as physical strength increases through exercise, communication skills increase through active engagement. Each conversation, regardless of outcome, strengthens the ability to express thoughts more clearly in the future. Daily conversation practice also builds mental flexibility. Different people require different ways of speaking. Some need simple explanations, others respond better to detail, and some prefer direct answers. By interacting with a variety of individuals, you learn to adjust your communication style naturally. This adaptability is a key part of confident speech because it removes rigidity and encourages responsiveness. One of the most effective ways to grow through daily conversations is to focus on presence. Instead of thinking ahead about what you will say next, focus on what is being said in the moment. When attention is fully engaged, responses become more relevant and natural. This reduces hesitation because you are reacting to understanding rather than prediction. Another important aspect is reducing self-judgment during conversations. Many people become overly focused on how they are being perceived. They analyze every sentence while speaking, which interrupts natural flow. This self-monitoring creates tension and reduces clarity. Instead, allow conversations to unfold without constant internal evaluation. Mistakes, pauses, and imperfect phrasing are part of natural communication and do not need to be controlled excessively. Practice also involves learning to continue speaking even when uncertainty appears. There will be moments when you cannot find the perfect word or when your thought is not fully formed. Instead of stopping completely, Continue expressing the idea in simpler terms. Communication does not require perfection, it requires understanding. Often, simpler expression leads to better clarity than overly complex phrasing. Repetition across daily interactions strengthens memory and expression. The more you explain ideas in different contexts, the easier it becomes to recall and articulate them. Concepts that once felt difficult to express begin to feel familiar. This familiarity creates confidence because the mind recognizes patterns in communication and responds more smoothly. Listening remains an essential part of this practice. Every conversation is not only an opportunity to speak, but also an opportunity to observe how others communicate. Notice how people explain ideas, how they structure their thoughts, and how they respond to questions. These observations gradually shape your own communication style without conscious effort. Learning happens both through speaking and through attentive listening. Consistency matters more than intensity. Long, occasional practice sessions are less effective than small daily interactions. A few minutes of meaningful conversation each day creates more progress than rare high-pressure situations. Regular exposure builds comfort, and comfort leads to confidence. Over time, speaking becomes less of an effort and more of a natural habit. Real-life conversations also teach adaptability. Unlike rehearsed speech, daily interaction is unpredictable. You cannot control what the other person will say. This unpredictability trains the mind to respond rather than recite. Response-based communication is more natural and effective because it aligns with real situations instead of imagined ones. Another benefit of daily conversation practice is the reduction of fear. Fear of speaking often comes from lack of experience. The more frequently you engage in conversation, the less unfamiliar it feels. Familiarity reduces hesitation. What once felt intimidating becomes normal. This shift does not happen through thinking but through experience. It is also important to accept that not every conversation will go perfectly. Some will feel smooth, others may feel awkward. This variation is part of the learning process. Improvement does not come from flawless performance, but from repeated participation. Each conversation contributes something, even if it does not feel successful at the moment. Over time, small improvements accumulate. You begin to notice that you speak more clearly without effort. You hesitate less before responding. You understand others more quickly. These changes are gradual, but they are real. They reflect consistent practice rather than sudden transformation. Daily conversations also strengthen emotional balance in communication. As you interact with different personalities, you learn to remain calm in a variety of situations. Some people may speak quickly, others slowly. Some may disagree with you, while others agree easily. Regular exposure helps you remain steady regardless of external behavior. This stability contributes to clearer expression because emotional disruption is reduced. Confidence in communication is not about dominating conversations. It is about participating with ease. A confident speaker does not force ideas or to prove a point. Instead, they contribute naturally, respond thoughtfully, and remain comfortable in silence when needed. This ease comes only through experience. The environment around you already provides countless opportunities for practice. Everyday life is filled with conversations that often go unnoticed as learning moments. Speaking to service workers, responding to questions in meetings, talking with friends, or even exchanging brief words with strangers, all contribute to development when approached consciously. As practice continues, communication begins to feel less like a task and more like a natural extension of thinking. Thoughts and speech start to align more closely. Ideas become easier to express because they are no longer held back by hesitation or uncertainty. Expression becomes smoother because the mind has learned to translate thought into words more efficiently. Eventually, daily conversation practice builds a quiet form of confidence. It is not loud or forced. It does not depend on preparation or special circumstances. It exists in ordinary moments, where speaking feels natural and understanding flows easily. This type of confidence is stable because it is based on experience rather than assumption. Clarity also becomes more consistent. Messages are expressed with fewer unnecessary details and greater focus. Communication becomes easier for both speaker and listener. Misunderstandings decrease because ideas are shared in a more direct and structured way. Through continued practice, communication transforms from something that once required effort into something that feels natural and reliable. Daily conversations become the foundation of this transformation. Each interaction, no matter how small, contributes to a deeper level of confidence and clarity that grows quietly over time. Chapter 10. Serve others through communication that builds understanding and hope. Communication reaches its highest form when it is no longer focused only on expressing yourself, but on improving the experience of another person. Words carry influence, and that influence can either create distance or build connection. When communication is used with awareness and responsibility, it becomes more than a personal skill. It becomes a way of serving others by offering clarity, comfort, and direction in moments where they are needed most. Every person carries unseen struggles. Some face uncertainty about their future, others deal with quiet emotional pressure, and many move through life without expressing what they truly feel. In such moments, communication has the power to either deepen isolation or reduce it. A thoughtful message, a patient response, or a calm explanation can shift someone's entire perspective, even if only slightly. That small shift often becomes meaningful over time. Serving others through communication begins with intention. Before speaking, there is value in considering what the other person needs from the conversation. Not every situation requires advice. Not every moment requires correction. Sometimes what is needed most is understanding without judgment. Other times it is reassurance that challenges are temporary and manageable. When intention is focused on benefit rather than self-expression alone, communication becomes more meaningful. Many people speak primarily to be heard. They focus on their own thoughts, their own experiences, and their own desire to respond. While self-expression is natural, communication becomes more powerful when it also includes awareness of the listener's emotional state. A message delivered without sensitivity may be correct in content, but ineffective in impact. The same message, delivered with care, can become supportive and transformative. Hope is one of the most valuable outcomes communication can create. Hope does not require grand speeches or dramatic encouragement. It often appears through simple clarity. When someone feels confused, a clear explanation can reduce anxiety. When someone feels overwhelmed, a structured perspective can restore direction. When someone feels uncertain, calm communication can create stability. These small moments build emotional strength in others without forcing solutions. Serving through communication also means choosing words that do not unnecessarily harm. Truth is important, but the manner of expressing truth determines its effect. A message delivered with respect allows another person to absorb it without feeling attacked. Harshness may deliver information, but it often closes the mind. Respectful communication keeps the door open for reflection and growth. Empathy plays a central role in this process. Empathy is the ability to understand another person's perspective without needing to fully agree with it. When empathy guides communication, responses become more thoughtful. Instead of reacting to surface behavior, attention shifts to the deeper emotions behind it. A person may appear frustrated, but underneath that frustration may be disappointment or fear. Recognizing this changes the tone of the conversation entirely. Listening carefully is one of the strongest ways to serve another person. When someone feels fully heard, their emotional pressure often decreases. They begin to organize their thoughts more clearly. They feel less isolated in their experience. Listening without interruption communicates respect in a way that words alone cannot. It tells the other person that their voice has value and their experience is worth understanding. At times, serving others through communication means holding back personal opinions. Not every moment requires a response. Some situations benefit more from silence than from immediate explanation. Silence can give another person space to think, reflect, and express themselves more fully. It prevents unnecessary interruption of their thought process and allows clarity to emerge naturally. Encouragement is another form of service in communication. Encouragement does not ignore reality or deny difficulty. Instead, it acknowledges challenges while reinforcing the belief that progress is possible. A well-timed encouraging message can help someone continue moving forward when they feel stuck. It does not remove obstacles, but it strengthens the willingness to face them. Clarity itself is a form of kindness. Confusing communication can increase stress and misunderstanding. Clear communication reduces mental effort for the listener. It helps them understand situations more quickly and make better decisions. Simplicity in explanation often carries more impact than complex wording because it respects the listener's time and cognitive load. Serving others also involves patience. Not everyone understands information at the same pace. Some people need time to process ideas before responding. Others may require repeated explanations in different forms. Patience ensures that communication remains supportive rather than rushed or dismissive. It allows understanding to develop naturally instead of being forced. Respect is another foundation of meaningful communication. Respect is not limited to polite language. It is reflected in how carefully you listen, how thoughtfully you respond, and how willingly you consider another person's perspective. Even during disagreement, respect maintains the dignity of both sides. It prevents conversations from turning into conflict and keeps focus on understanding rather than winning. Hope is strengthened when communication avoids unnecessary negativity. Constant focus on problems without direction can deepen discouragement. While it is important to acknowledge difficulties honestly, it is equally important to highlight possible steps forward. Balanced communication recognizes reality while also pointing toward improvement. This balance helps others remain mentally steady, even during challenging situations. Serving through communication also means recognizing emotional timing. There are moments when someone is not ready to receive advice or analysis. In such moments, forcing information can create resistance. Sensitivity to timing allows communication to be more effective because it aligns with the listener's readiness. Sometimes, the most helpful action is waiting until the other person is open to conversation. Another important aspect is humility. A communicator who believes they always have the correct answer limits their ability to serve others. Humility allows space for learning from the conversation itself. It encourages openness to different perspectives and reduces the pressure to dominate the exchange. When humility is present, communication becomes collaborative rather than instructional. Service in communication also includes offering perspective rather than control. Instead of telling others exactly what to do, it can be more helpful to present information that allows them to think more clearly and make their own decisions. This approach respects their autonomy and builds confidence in their ability to handle situations independently. Even brief interactions can carry meaning. A short conversation delivered with kindness can affect someone's entire day. A calm explanation during confusion can reduce stress. A respectful response during disagreement can prevent escalation. These small actions accumulate into a larger impact that extends beyond the moment itself. Over time, people begin to associate your communication with stability and understanding. They feel safer expressing themselves because they know they will not be judged harshly. They become more open because they trust that their thoughts will be received with care. This trust strengthens relationships and creates a sense of emotional safety. Serving others through communication is not about sacrificing your own voice. It is about aligning your voice with intention that considers both clarity and kindness. It is about recognizing that every conversation has the potential to influence another person's mindset, even in subtle ways. When used responsibly, communication becomes a tool that not only expresses ideas but also supports emotional well-being. Ultimately, the highest form of communication is not measured by how well you speak, but by how positively your words affect others. When your speech helps someone understand their situation more clearly, when it reduces confusion, when it brings calm during uncertainty, or when it restores a sense of possibility, it moves beyond personal expression and becomes a form of service. In that space, communication becomes a quiet but powerful force that builds understanding where there was confusion and offers hope where it was beginning to fade.